It's incredible with the right marketing campaign or being able to be at the right place at the right time. And you got to give them credit. These viral splashes can be extremely effective if you are targeting the right audience. They knew what happened when they walked off that set that day, and they knew it was going to do well, but they couldn't have predicted this type of success this quickly. What is going on? And welcome on inside yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we're diving into the ever-changing digital social marketing landscape. This show is no different. It's been a second. I know those of you that subscribe, you're like, oh, there's a new episode. It's about damn time, David. I apologize as the holidays and the madness and all those different things, but we are here. And I wanted to bring in our amazing producer, Kayla, as well, because Kayla, man, the last couple months, at least 6 weeks, there's been a lot of these viral marketing moments on social that we've been discussing on social media more on a daily basis, but also we've been talking about over here in the office. So what we're going to do today is we want to break down 3 really major stories that I know everybody that's listening right now are going to remember. We're calling this marketing nails and fails, what we can learn from these viral splashes, both good and bad. But we want to break down 3 in particular. And then we have some Q&A at the end, I know, Kayla, from some questions that we've gotten from the listeners over in our email inbox and on social. So you got the stories. Let's cue them up however you see fit. Let's throw it to you, Kayla.
Yeah, let's dive right in. I mean, we've got to start with the Stanley Cup story. I think everybody has seen that viral video of the customer with, her car set on fire, but her Stanley Cup remained in perfect condition. And then she got a car from Stanley.
Brilliant. So this is so funny because everybody that knew about this moment, have you seen the Stanley Cup video? Everybody assumed the NHL Stanley Cup. What are you talking about? Because listen, the Stanley Cup does travel from city to city. Once the winner of the NHL wins it, that's kind of a whole thing. Stanley Cup does have a Twitter account as well or it has a social media presence as well at the NHL. But we're talking about Stanley, the company that creates these cups. But yeah, this was back in November before Thanksgiving, like the week of the 17th or what have you. But yeah, the car fire happens. The woman posted on social media. And then immediately the CEO pretty much comes. It's a great job by their team, by the way, right? The CEO comes out. He posts a video within 24 hours. They offer her a brand new vehicle. And you think about the ROI of this PR. Yes, Stanley has to go out and invest $40,000, $50,000 in a brand new vehicle. But the amount of press they picked up was absolutely incredible because we looked at it. Mentions shot up by 563%. Their Instagram followers went up 6%, 34,000 followers just in the 5 days after the viral post. That video got 56 million views. I think it's still counting. We counted this back in early February. That video is still getting a lot of play. And then 2 million views, Kayla, from the CEO's response video to that. So what's really crazy is the bottom line revenue this created. And you pulled this stat, which my jaw was on the floor this morning when I looked at it, that Stanley, they had 73 million in revenue in 2019, 750 million in sales at the end of 2023. What a difference. And a lot of that could be contributed to, I mean, these cups are like on the black market. They're going on eBay for like $400 a cup. Like, what is happening here? To the point where I think we saw, was it Patagonia do something similar where I don't know if we figured it out or not. Was that a planted moment where the woman is hiking and she needs a jacket and they fly one out to her and everything like that? So I think now people are skeptical, like all these moments, are they going to be curated and not be natural? But again, this is why it's so important to have a strong social team that's monitoring conversation. And again, if your customers are dealing with something, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, to be able to speak with them. Social media is social, right? You have to be social with the end consumer. And I think, man, did Stanley just capitalize on this? And what's so cool is instead of just saying we got 53 million views and we got all these different followers, I mean, directly hitting the bottom line in a big, big way to the point where these are the hottest things on the market right now. Just insane.
No, absolutely. And I think it's kind of the perfect cap because I think it's caused everyone to really reflect on the last few years that they've had and just what they've done in terms of completely shifted their target market from construction workers to millennial women.
Right. So it's incredible with the right marketing campaign or being able to be at the right place at the right time. And you got to give them credit. Again, looking at that trend, looking at that moment, whoever said, hey, will we be interested? Is there a world where we buy this woman a car and we have the CEO and the CEO's like, I mean, I think it makes sense to me. Let's roll. And then they reap the benefits of that. So such a great job and such a great case study, I'm sure, in marketing, especially in social marketing circles that we'll talk about for decades to come.
No, absolutely. They have had another viral moment though that's not so nice. They recently there was another viral TikTok trend about potential
Controversy.
lead in their cups, and they did address it, but it's also got other competitors like Hydro Flask joining the conversation. So it'll be interesting to see how that could impact their sales and revenue long term.
I'm not going to get into this story, but we'll have to break it down in a different show. I was looking at the market share of DoorDash compared to that of Uber Eats and Postmates. And remember when Postmates was like the only game in town and had like 90% of market share, and now they're like at 8%, and DoorDash has like 60% of the market. And this is what was so funny during really the COVID era, right? Where it's like Skype had a 20-year head start and still found a way to fumble the bag, and here comes Zoom. But it's fascinating to me to see how either companies that have market share lose it, and when people like Stanley or companies like Stanley maybe have kind of puttered out or they're just kind of there, all of a sudden can, 10x their revenue in 2 years based on being cool again. It's fascinating to dig deeper into those. But, this is something that if you haven't looked into it, if your team doesn't know about it and you're working in social, obviously dig deeper into this story because it's a great example of how all of our brands can capitalize on success. And again, it goes back to the tried and true method: be communicative with your social listener, or listen to your social fans and speak with them. Be social on social. But this next one, Kayla, not a success story potentially.
No, well, some people might argue. I think this one has a lot of people divided. This infamous Smokeless Grill Snoop Dogg story with Solo Stove. I mean, we definitely got to dive into that one.
Yeah, so this is huge because I think Snoop came out and said, I'm pretty much going to stop smoking, which obviously caused every outlet to write about it, which is what you want, right? An Ad Age at the time, anyways, ranked this number 18 on the list of 40 best ads in 2023. And they gained like 60,000 followers on social media after the call to action was like, oh, by the way, he just meant, smokeless grills, not actually, smoking weed or what have you. But this is interesting. The company ended up parting ways with the CEO. They did not see really revenue attribution to this. Obviously, they got brand awareness, but really, I'm extremely confident with stories like Stanley and even this of the smokeless stove with Snoop. These viral splashes can be extremely effective if you are targeting the right audience. So if the goal of this stunt is to recruit potential future customers to the top of your funnel, which it should be 99.9% of the time, are these people that you're getting in front of, are these articles that are being written about you getting in front of the actual buyer persona that you're targeting to generate future revenue? Or is it just noise, right? I think too often attention and engagement is looked at really in this vacuum when it should always be getting the right attention and the right engagement that translates to future business success. I saw an article or maybe a comment that said this would have been much better with like a Bear Grylls, right? Like someone like him that speaks to that audience more. Snoop Dogg, maybe his main audience is, I don't know, that 40-year-old hip hop fan. And are they really going to be investing in this smokeless stove, or should you be going after a different demographic? And if you are, who's maybe a better person to get the word out about that? So they made the splash, they got the brand awareness, they got the write-ups, they got the followers, but they weren't going after the right audience. And that's the key when you want to go viral. Are you actually recruiting the right people in your funnel? And that's something that every business has to focus on, right?
Right. No, absolutely. I think it's interesting to see like that after this, like the drastic measures they took to part ways with the CEO. Like, do you feel like that was, the right decision? Do you feel like he should have been given another chance to like maybe go back to the drawing board, try again with,
Yep.
a different influencer possibly?
And I think too, with different companies, you see this with the Super Bowl, right? Where people take large swings to go after a broad audience. There's no better time than the Super Bowl where you have more eyeballs across America looking at your product. But if you're going to invest in a Super Bowl ad, your product should be good for a broad audience as well, or at least know the ROI of that. And this is a product in particular that's kind of a niche market, right? Like people that would like this really I think would love it and be an ambassador and be someone that screams from the rooftops how much they enjoy this product. However, it's probably not as broad as the Snoop Dogg audience is. And again, everybody talked about it, but nobody actually went through with the call to action to actually generate revenue. So the goal of marketing, you're going to spend all the marketing that Barbie did on that movie. They want to see people actually show up at the box office, which in that example they did. But this is kind of a tale of two stories, right? You have Stanley, who I think did it the right way. And then with this Smokeless Grill Snoop Dogg campaign, again, a lot of noise, a lot of engagement, not the bottom line results.
Agreed. Agreed for sure. We'll see what they come up with next. But in the meantime, we got to talk about this last story. I think everybody has heard about this. The now infamous Katt Williams interview.
Yeah,
Club Shay. Insanity.
Yeah, I mean, this came across my feed. And first of all, Katt has been really out of the spotlight for quite some time. More known for maybe his arrest or some crazy stuff he's doing at Target with a Target employee. But obviously, shoot, when I was in high school, this dates me, but what, back in the 04, 05, like one of the hottest comedians out. And it's kind of gone through his ups and downs. But, this Club Shay podcast, we were tracking it since the outset because right when I actually watched it the day it got posted, a 2.5-hour podcast. And I'm listening to it. I'm just like laughing hysterically because of the way he was talking about certain individuals. So, I mean, those first 30 minutes, Shannon was trying to get a question in, but Katt just said, I got a dissertation. This is going to be a monologue. You're going to have to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. However, he did the right thing there. 56 million views as of February 1st, 3.1 billion estimated impressions. Shannon Sharp gained 108 new Instagram followers. Club Shay's podcast gained 136,000 new followers. Katt Williams gained over 402,000 followers, all from this moment. I've never seen Kayla, and tell me if you agree, more clips and clip downs from just social, like looking for receipts. And I haven't seen someone go this viral in a long, long time where everybody was so hung up on every word, on every statement over the course of the 2.5 hours. But yeah, almost immediately people started posting their favorite clips and also going out there and looking for the receipts that he was talking about, which a lot of the times the receipts were there.
They absolutely were there. I agree that this is like a phenomenon that we haven't seen in a while. I saw a Twitter post where someone's saying, we're all on here live tweeting this podcast interview as if it's a game or an award show, which is something that I don't think has been done before. So it's interesting to see like the immediate reaction and interesting to see how the Club Shay team capitalized on it.
Yeah, I want to break that down in a second. But again, there's no such thing as content that's too long, just too boring. And here's another example where I think a lot of us marketers say Gen Z and their attention span is only 15 seconds. And you got to be quick and you got to move. And yes, we understand the idea. We talk about in this podcast on my social media all the time about pattern interruptions, vertical content, lo-fi content, hooking the audience in the first 3 seconds. However, if Katt Williams wants to go off for 2.5 hours, you might have half the country watching this whole freaking full 2.5 hours, which is pretty insane. But yeah, we dug into what Club Shay did. Obviously, they knew what happened when they walked off that set that day, and they knew it was going to do well. But they couldn't have predicted this type of success this quickly. But they really did a great job, and I really want us marketers to study what they did. I'd love to talk to their team, by the way, in the future. But they posted an additional 37 short clips in that first week. All of those garnered about 34.8 million views on their own. But he talked about Kevin Hart. He talked about Steve Harvey. He talked about Jonathan Majors. He talked about, and all those were clip downs, whether they were, we saw some, Kayla, that were 2 minutes, some were 24 minutes, but different thumbnail, a clickbait type title. Katt Williams addresses Kevin Hart controversy, whatever the title was. So forevermore, people are going to stumble across these clips. And then that's the macro content was at 2.5 hours, but the amount of micro content they created on YouTube, on Instagram, cut downs, vertical, minute or less, 12 minutes or more, it was absolutely insane. And I would say that Shannon Sharpe and Club Shay Shay squeezed every ounce of potential out of this viral moment, which we see so many brands fumble. Like, this is why, you know, we love working with our clients, because if we can see a moment like this and we can put gasoline on the fire. But so many brands have a moment like this, they just keep the full macro content out, never do any cut downs, they never do any different thumbnails, they never look at the most clickbaity ways to get people inside of this funnel, if you will. And it's incredible. What's funny is Katt gained over 400,000 followers. He didn't capitalize at all on this. Now he was smart enough, I think, to launch tickets for his tour, which I think sold out immediately because everybody wants to see him go off. But if Katt had a team, and he would have, I think he could go easy, Kayla, over 1 million followers, if he was also doing cut downs or just asking Club Shay Shay to do collab posts. These small tweaks in these viral moments can mean the difference. So kudos to Shannon Sharpe, kudos to Club Shay Shay. They obviously knew that it was going to be a hot interview, but once they knew it was going crazy, and it was definitely the most viewed interview in the history of their account, they did everything possible to squeeze every ounce of potential out of that moment. And again, another thing that should be studied and should be revered is really how they capitalize on this one.
I agree. And I think they're keeping the momentum going, because by the time this episode airs, they've got a new episode coming on Club Shay Shay with Monique. And we all know gracious. We all know that there's been a lot of controversy surrounding her for years.
Well, this goes back to, like, people, you know, there's a reason we like reality shows, whether it's The Bachelor and Bachelorette, or whether it's Jersey Shore back in the day, getting drunk and getting fights at the bar. I think humans like drama. They like, you know, shit talking, to be honest. And not a lot of celebrities are willing to kind of talk about some of these people in the media. You could argue whether it was amazing to do that or not, or is he affecting other people? I think he was sued by Kevin Hart and Steve Harvey for libel or disinformation or whatever it may be. But I think, yeah, if you can clip down a Monique spot where she goes off on the CEO of Netflix, which we've seen in the past, like, it's going to get views, and then people are going to watch some macro content. So you got to kind of find that balance where you don't want to be a caricature of yourself if you're Club Shay Shay, just getting the most ridiculous statements ever from these people maybe in the spotlight. But we know it works too. So you got to find that happy medium for sure.
I think they're doing a great job of that. Such good stories today.
Yeah, but I love the science behind both. I love how Stanley capitalized. I love how Katt Williams, Club Shay Shay capitalized on the Katt Williams drama, if you will. But really, it was amazing to me. Again, I haven't seen that probably in my career, where so many people started going off and creating their own content, and finding the receipts and finding an old Steve Harvey show clip that backed up a Katt Williams statement. Mike, and then every celebrity also, within 24 hours, Kevin Hart said something. Ludacris rapped a custom freestyle. Mike Epps said, "Bro, why didn't you talk shit about me? I need ticket sales too." Dave Chappelle was on stage with who was it? But anyways, every celebrity that was talked about on it, I feel like came out and felt I needed to defend themselves, which is odd too. And that got more people like, wait, I didn't see it. What's Kevin Hart talking about? Let me go watch. So, man, it was just crazy. It was like a social media viral dream, essentially. But the science behind it, there's a reason why it succeeded so much. It's because Club Shay Shay was able to do those cut downs and get out in front of it as well. So it's good to see the Stanley Cup example, the Katt Williams example, but also we sandwiched in between the Smokeless Grill example that, you know, they tried to do what Stanley and Club Shay Shay did, but wasn't able to affect the bottom line as much, for sure.
Yeah, not quite. But we'll definitely be keeping track of all of we're sure there'll be more
the science behind going viral. You know, we geek out over what makes things go viral, but also how you can capitalize on it when your moment is there. But I do also know it's been a second since we dropped a pod, so we have some Q&As that came through across email and DM. So happy to answer a couple of our faves before we wrap up this episode.
Of course. Let's dive right in. We've got the first question from Caitlin, who is in Denver. She wants to know, how can you give your content the best chance of going viral? Speaking of viral content.
Yeah. This is going to be probably a boring answer. However, if you set benchmarks of where you want to be, and we do this even with my content, Kayla, and across all of our clients, but if you set benchmarks, you notice trends, you're looking at the different buckets of content that are working or not working, and you're constantly doing this analysis and A/B testing, you start to give yourself a batting percentage of what's going to go off. Now, you can't ever guarantee to go viral, and I think the definition of viral can be anywhere from 100,000 views to 100 million views. Like, what do you consider viral? I would say if something on your account is getting 100x what it usually does, then you can say you've now went viral based on what's normal. But again, giving yourself the best chance, and this is, go back to TV for a second. Let's look at a different medium. With the Nielsen ratings, an NBC, a CBS was simply trying to find the right combination of shows, a lead in, a lead out, a bumper, what happens after the news or late night TV show. They were trying to find the best combination to get the most ratings, so then they can charge the most for their commercials. And as you can see back in the day with TV, they were constantly rearranging new shows, old shows, syndication, different time slots to get the best combination of goods, to get the best overall rating. And that's what we're doing on social as well. You have 10 different pieces of content buckets that you're constantly analyzing, what works, what doesn't. And the more that you can weed out the bottom 10% and put more in the top 10%, you start to alter your percentage and have a much better chance of quote unquote going viral, or at least being more successful than not. So that's what all the top brands do. There's a reason why these large accounts, hit these viral moments more so than others, because they're constantly looking at the data. And listen, I've talked to multi-billion dollar brands that I won't mention by name, that everybody on this podcast is aware of, that is a Fortune 500 company, that they don't do this. They don't look at what's working, what's not. They're just guessing and spraying and praying, which is sad to see. But I say that because I think it's simplistic, and I think you guys are going to think the answer is boring. But so many billion-dollar brands don't do it that I know there's some people out there that still aren't doing it. So I would just say, get the data, set your benchmarks, adjust your, what the minimum requirement is for your content, and start to get rid of the content that's not working and double down on the content that is. And that changes based on algorithm and as you recruit new audiences.
Agreed. Trial and error. That's
Yep.
what it's all about. Let's go to DJ from LA. He wants to know, how often should you post on social media to grow?
How often should you post on social media? This is a question I oddly, Kayla, get a lot. And I'm not sure why. I think so many people ask me first how much they should be posting before the 74 other questions you should ask yourself before you launch a social media strategy. And I think the number one thing people get wrong, who is your audience? Who do you want to get out in front of? Reverse engineer that audience's likes and dislikes and create content for them. Now, that content can be once a day. It can be 3 times a week. It can be like a Sports Center posts 54 times a day. Based on resources, based on quality of content. But ultimately, I do think I would worry much less about how much you should be posting on social media. I do think people wait to be perfect and they hold back content that they can easily be getting out. And again, the more you can get out and the more you can test and the more you can analyze, the better you're going to be able to train yourself on that algorithm. But I do think the posting thing can vary, again, from once a day all the way to 40 times a day on a platform like Instagram. But I'm much, much more worried about, what is your audience like? Are you curating content towards them? And then are you finding the best combination of goods that continue to get followers, continue to get engagement? Because you got to be careful on social media. If you're posting content your audience doesn't like or doesn't engage with, the algorithm, the batting average starts to get turned down a little bit, right? So that's why when your bosses or your different departments say, hey, let's just post it. Well, I could just post it. I know my audience is not going to like it. I know it's going to tank, and that's going to hurt my ability tomorrow, the next day, and a week from now to reach my audience, because Instagram's like, ooh, David's audience doesn't like that content. Let's turn down this algorithm because we want to make sure people stay on platform. And every time David posts this one type of content, So that's why I think it's imperative to know your audience really, really well and then analyze that type of content before you think about how much time you should post.
Agree. This is good stuff. Oh, I feel like this next question is the perfect follow-up to that. Krista
Mhm.
from Jackson wants to know, what type of content do you think performs the best on Instagram specifically?
Yeah, what we're seeing right now, and I've said this before on different shows and different webinars and things like that, but lo-fi content is outperforming hi-fi content. 40% more views, 30% higher reach. That's courtesy Dash Hudson, but we're seeing the same thing here at STN across all of our clients. I will say that even small tweaks on Instagram, like carousels, they make up about 19% of content on Instagram, but also they get higher engagement rates than that of just individual images or that of individual videos. So can you put images and videos in a carousel and have, swipe left, especially the call to action? You see this a lot with sports properties like a Sports Center, swipe left to see LeBron dunk on whoever. And it's just kind of that gateway drug to make people like engage with the content. But yeah, I would say from an Instagram standpoint, there's definitely not only the lo-fi note and obviously Instagram Reels note, but literally the different types of content. I will say too, what we see, if you use the native platform, right? If you're using stickers inside the Instagram platform, if you're using the text feature inside your Instagram stories or the poll features, Instagram likes that. They may not even admit that, but they like when you use their features internally, and they're going to serve you to more people. So the easy answer is lo-fi. The easier answer is probably Instagram Reels, but even the post type carousel versus individual, you're better served posting 2 images in a carousel rather than just posting 1 image standalone. Not always the case, but on the law of averages, we see that definitely is the answer.
So good. Let's move on to Jason from Jersey City. He wants to
Yep.
know, how do you know if a social media trend isn't one you should hop on?
How do you know if a social media trend isn't one you should hop on? That's a great question. What's up, Jason, by the way? Listen, I think so many people try to hop on the trend in order to go viral or to get on the steam engine, if you will, that's happening in the moment. It just has to be genuine and authentic to your brand. So, it's so important. I think if your audience, again, going back to your audience, if a lot of your audience was definitely talking about the Katt Williams moment, can your brand show up in that moment? Potentially. But you need to make sure that you're not hopping on these trends, because it's just so, you've seen this, Kayla, right? Where your skin's crawling when GE or KitchenAid is hopping on a Taylor Swift moment or whatever. It just doesn't land, right? So I think if you're being honest with yourself, if this fits within your moment. And I'll say another example, like with content we've been creating, Kayla, on my social media. Usually I want to talk about Taylor Swift, but the intersection with Travis Kelce and how that's affected his brand and how the NFL is making more money and how it's increased female viewership, that automatically goes into my world of my audience. But maybe prior to that, me talking about Taylor Swift's #1 album would not make sense. It would feel like it's off brand, but because there's that NFL component, it's like the intersection of entertainment and sports. So it's a fine balance. And I think anytime you don't know, you probably should withhold. But those moments will come to you, and you'll know if it fits right in line with your audience and what your audience is currently geeking out about or talking about. And that's when it makes sense for you to hop on.
Love that. Final question, Danielle
Final
from
question.
Charlotte. Okay. Is Threads still a platform brands should keep on their radar? I know you were following this in the beginning, David.
Yeah, and I know we haven't really done a major follow-up to the original launch of Threads. Here's what I've been saying to a lot of clients and people in the industry is I think Meta could have done a much better job of investing in the platform, paying creators to have exclusives on the platform, making sure the UI worked really, really well so it didn't turn anybody off. But what I will say, I'm looking forward to 2 things. I'm not looking forward to. I'm keeping an eye on 2 things. Election season. I think once we get into this election season, is Twitter and X going to turn into a cesspool of doom scrolling? If it does, I think you're going to see a lot of people move, or at least be looking for an alternative to Twitter and X, and people will start to gravitate towards that of Instagram or Instagram Threads. The second thing I'm looking at is, at any point, Elon Musk can decide he's going to move to subscription model. He can decide that videos are no longer allowed on the platform. You just don't know with Elon. So I think because he's so knee-jerk with his reactions and his updates to the platform, that is another reason where if you couple doomsday scrolling on election season, coupled with a really major announcement from Elon that he's doing something weird, you could see just a mass exodus from that platform over to Threads. So I definitely think it's something that people are using. I do think it's valuable to invest in it now, because if that moment happens, like I just talked about, you're going to be able to leverage all of the good engagement and followers that you've recruited into your brand to this point. But yes, I think they could have done a lot better things. They could be trying to gobble up more market share. I don't think Threads are on the offense. I think they're more on the defense with their platform right now. But they would really, really benefit from a Elon Musk major move that turned users off, and or if the content moderation and the safety, brand safety, is not in a healthy place come election season, because that can get really, I mean, already I see more conspiracy theory and more like violence and things on Twitter that is turning me off. But if that gets dialed up a couple more times, a 3 or 4x of that, I think a lot of people will start to move towards Threads. So that's my predictions / things I'm looking out for.
I agree. It's interesting to see. There's definitely a lot of creatives on Threads right now, I will say. I see a lot of content creators. So, and
I give credit people. There's some people that are really doubling down on Threads, and anytime a new platform is released like that, there's less noise, and you're able to break through, which is where a lot of us succeeded on TikTok as well early on. So anyways, that was awesome. So thanks for the Q&As. I'm glad we broke down those 3 top stories that have really, over the last quarter or so, have really dominated the social media landscape, has been those 3 stories we broke down earlier in the show. So hopefully you got some value out of that as we broke down the stats and the revenue tied to those viral moments. And then thanks to all of you for sending those questions. You can always send us questions, DM on social media, anywhere you see us, you can do it. But yeah, thank you so much to Kayla for getting all these stories together, as well as a Q&A. And thank you for listening to the Business Social Podcast. It's obviously all powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. We'll see you on the next episode.